Random House Audio presents The Plague Forge, Book 3 of the Dire Earth Cycle, by Jason M. Hough. Read for you by Simon Vance. For my sons Nathan and Ian, the sky is not the limit. I drew these tides of men into my hands, and wrote my will across the sky in stars. Sister Haley, a verse from the Testament of the Ladder. Redacted, deemed plagiarized in 2292 from T. E. Lawrence's The Seven Pillars of Wisdom, 1926. After everything we've done to each other, all the wars and shit, maybe this aura is the builder's way of telling our collective asses to go to our room without supper. Scads, 2280. Chapter 1. Belém, Brazil, 20th March, 2285. Seconds from collision, the vehicle lurched. Mud sprayed from knobby tires as the bulky truck whipped around and slammed back first into the mouth of the tunnel. Dirt and rock clanged against the roof outside. The whine of electricity bleeding out from the ultra-caps below Skyler's feet dropped off to nothing, allowing the clatter of heavy rain on armoured body panels to fill the cramped compartment. "All clear," Pablo said from his perch in the gun turret. "You're up, senor." Skyler gripped the long chrome handle on the rear door with both hands. The full suit of body armour made him feel like he'd been dipped in concrete. Plates of carbon fibre were woven into thick ballistic fabric, even the gloves. He glanced back at Anna. She sat cross-legged in shorts and a T-shirt on the bench that ran the length of the compartment, an improvised explosive in her hands. The thin brick of wrapped plastique sported a hand-built receiver glued to one side. As he watched, she stuffed the bundle out a murder hole, then smacked the portal closed with her hand. The arming beacon lay on the bench beside her, safely in the off position. "All set," she said. Then she caught Skyler's nod, leaned in, kissed him hard on the lips, and flipped his face mask down for him. "Good luck." She'd been confined to a bed for the last few weeks after suffering bruised kidneys and some internal bleeding in Ireland. The camp medics and Skyler had advised against her going on this mission at all, but when her eyes had flared with dogged determination, he'd known the argument was pointless. At least she'd promised to stay inside the vehicle. He grinned. "You too." Anna returned his grin with a half-smile of her own, then brushed a strand of hair from her face. In that instant she looked as lovely as she ever had, and Skyler glanced away. He couldn't quite explain why, and hoped against hope that Anna hadn't noticed his sudden distance. The truth was, ever since Tanya had given him her air aboard that alien ship, he had found himself in a strange sort of limbo. He turned back to the task at hand, focused. With both hands he yanked the door handle. When the door swung open, Skyler found himself staring down the tunnel once again. A steady stream of dirty water ran down the centre of the floor where, after all this time, a deep and erratic gouge had been carved. More water dripped and trickled from the curved ceiling and walls, making the inside of the tunnel appear to be engulfed in the same storm that pummeled the rainforest outside. With all the dexterity his combat armour would allow, Skyler hopped out of the APC and raised his gun. He smacked the weapon's light on and then did the same to the one mounted on his helmet. Already he regretted wearing the heavy suit. Sweat trickled down his back, and his legs felt like lead weights under the bulk. The gun he'd chosen only made matters worse. The heavy assault rifle fired large-caliber rounds, regular from one magazine and explosive-tipped from a second. He could switch with a flick of his thumb. Mounted halfway down the barrel was a slightly curved steel plate that came up a few centimetres above the body of the weapon, save for a small gap through which he could aim. The bulk of the shield descended from the barrel, which provided an extra barrier to anything that might seek to hit him in the chest. The protection might come in handy, but it made the weapon unbalanced and difficult to aim. Skyler had almost left it behind in favour of something smaller, when Anna pointed out that he needed it only to get to the shell ship. Once he had the relic that lay within, he could ditch the bulky thing and run. He glanced back one more time, some clever bit of reassurance on his lips. The words were drowned by a thunderous eruption, Pablo on the roof-mounted rotary cannon. Individual gunshots could not be heard, only the steady hum as the weapon spewed bullets like a fire hose. It sounded like a pure bass note run through a stack of concert speakers. The vibration shook droplets of water from the circular tunnel around Skyler and made the plates of his combat armor chatter together. The brutal noise vanished, replaced by the prattle of shell casings tumbling down the side of the APC and into the mud. Pablo fired the weapon for only a few seconds. Whatever had been his target, Skyler imagined it had been reduced to a few shredded bits of meat. He saw none of this, though, as Vanessa had stuffed the vehicle's rear end expertly into the maw of the tunnel, ensuring Skyler would not have to worry about attack from behind. "Get moving!" Anna shouted at him. She stood, crouched in the center of the compartment now, pistols in both hands, ready to move to murder holes on either side of the vehicle should anything get past Pablo's Gatling gun. The plan required speed, and Skyler had not moved a step yet. He faced the tunnel again and started to jog forward, as if pushed by Anna's gaze at his back. Skyler's breath fogged the inside of his face mask. Moisture from the humid air of the tunnel formed droplets on the outside. The thick sheet of clear plastic curved around in front of him and offered decent enough protection as long as he kept his chin down. Visibility be damned. He walked forward. The mud swallowed and sucked at his boots with each step. He moved farther to the outside of the curved passage where the mud wasn't as deep, but walking along the steeper part made his footing awkward and forced him to use his left hand to steady himself. This meant he had to carry the heavy rifle and its huge shield with his right. By the time the crashed ship came into view, his arm burned, barely able to keep the tip of the barrel from dragging in the rising water. Aim of any effectiveness would be all but impossible. Pablo's rotary gun hummed again, strangely muted here at the end of the tunnel, as if the sound came rolling down the long tube and then cancelled itself out where the space abruptly ended. Beneath the thrum came a rapid series of claps. Anna's pistols. Skyler forced himself to ignore it. They had their job, he had his. Water pooled in the cavity at the end of the tunnel. Despite the time that had passed since Skyler had first come here, the water had not increased in depth, leaving the scarred vessel resting in waist-deep water. Visibility dropped the closer he came to it, and by the time his boots filled with water, Skyler found himself surrounded in humid air that smelled and tasted vaguely of copper. Movement in front of him. A black shape, slipping out of the opening on the side of the craft and into the water, so smoothly no splash was generated. Instead, a subtle ripple fanned out across the surface. Skyler braced his feet and raised his weapon with both hands. Between the riot mask in front of his face, the swirling steam in the air, and the plate of shielding mounted halfway down the gun barrel, he could barely see anything. The thing that had slipped into the water had merged into the darkness around it, and his gun's light failed to illuminate anything other than the fine droplets of moisture in the air. He held his breath and waited, counting silently. 4, 5. Something surged in the water, a bow shock spray of dark liquid as torso and arms came up and lunged forward. Skyler recoiled on instinct, felt himself tipping backward under the weight of his gear as the subhuman came fully out of the water, red laser light flaring from its eyes. Some small corner of Skyler's mind kicked in during the split second it took for the creature to close the distance. He thumbed his weapon's clip selector, switching to explosive-tipped rounds. He fired. The bullet hit the creature square in the chest. At the same instant, its outstretched fingertips brushed Skyler's shield. A deafening crack, a blinding flash of light, pressure on Skyler's own chest as the blast pushed the two of them apart. He fell backward into the water, had a strange awareness of cold, seeping around his combat armor and into his clothing. His ears rang, yet he still heard the subhuman splash back into the pool and writhe there, thrashing in the water like an irritated alligator. Skyler sat up. He raised his gun from the water and aimed toward the splashing chaos a few meters away. This time he held the trigger down. A rapid series of small explosions lit the cave as if someone had thrown a string of lit fireworks into the pool. Some of his rounds hit the back wall, others exploded on impact with the water around the creature, filling the space with a violent spray. Still more found their target, racking the augmented being with brilliant flashes of light, pushing it back. The subhuman somehow found its footing, tried to dodge first left, then right. Skyler gave it no relief. He kept firing even as he came to his feet. He swept the barrel of the gun in sync with the creature's movements and sensed the desperation there. It was hard to tell for sure, but Skyler thought he saw one of the creature's arms had been severed just below the elbow. With a click, the magazine of explosive rounds
Sample complete. Ready to continue?